Everyone knows Katniss Everdeen, main character in The Hunger Games, a dystopian young adult trilogy about war, rebellion, and love. Suzanne Collins' world-building skills are on point, and from a feminist point of view, it's such a pleasure to read or watch the story. But what are the points in The Hunger Games that make the story so enjoyable for feminists to watch? In this video, I will have a closer look at the stereotypical or non-stereotypical character traits and behaviors of the main characters and at the system and the positions in it. In the end, I will check whether the 4 movies of The Hunger Games pass the Bechdel test or not, and thus if gender equality and representation of women are actively pursued. Let's jump right into the first story analysis that is part of the series Dystopian Worlds and Gender Equality. The main characters. Katniss Everdeen, Peter Millark and Gale Hawthorne from District 12 are the main characters in the Hunger Games trilogy. They all become crucial parts in the fight against the Capitol, and more importantly against President Snow, who is particularly engaged in threatening and oppressing the tributes from the districts, and who sees Katniss as his personal enemy. Katniss is depicted as a strong, rough, and mostly solitary character. Her only real friend and ally in District 12 is Gale. Together with him, she goes hunting and bartering on the black market in order to provide their families with enough food and other supplies to survive. She is portrayed as temperamental,
I volunteer as tribute!
passionate, as well as physically strong. She doesn't care about the opinions of others at first, and thus comes across as unapproachable to outsiders.
And right now, sweetheart, you're not off to a real good start.
Katniss herself tells Cinna that she isn't really known as a likable person.
Yeah, but I'm not very good at making friends.
We'll see.
All in all, Katniss breaks repeatedly with female stereotypes.
Don't you know how beautiful you look?
No, and I don't know how to make people like
Throughout the story, she remains mostly true to herself and also quite independent.
So what happens when we get back?
I don't know. I guess we try to forget.
It's similar with Peter. When we think in terms of traditional role cliches, Peter seems to embody the more feminine traits. Obviously, he bakes, he has an artistic streak, and he is charming. In addition, he is portrayed as the more reasonable and optimistic guy. While with Katniss, the focus is more on physical strength, Peter's strengths are clearly on the mental side.
Come on, they'll love it.
With his charm, he manages to wrap people around his finger, and by that he evokes sympathy for Katniss,
Because she came here with me.
which eventually saves both their lives.
And being in love with that boy might just get you sponsors, which could save your damn life.
In fact, Peter's first and only priority from the beginning on is that Katniss survives.
You know what my mother said? She said District 12 might finally have a winner. But she wasn't talking about me.
Besides all this, Peter also succeeds in fighting the demons caused by the Tracker Jacker venom in the third part of the trilogy. This requires enormous mental strength and will to survive. Okay, now we've talked about the non-stereotypical features of Katniss and Peter. But what about Gale? Unlike Peter, Gale can be understood as typically male. He stands out for his physical strength and his strategic mind. He later becomes a loyal soldier of District 13. He is rather quick-tempered, principled, and visionary.
He's already talking to minds. People want to fight.
He often thinks in black and white terms and believes in the victory at all costs.
Filled with civilians.
Doesn't matter. Even if those civilians are just mopping floors, they're helping the enemy.
He doesn't hesitate to tell Katniss directly what he thinks and expects her to take a stand.
I saw a coward.
You don't have any idea what he's
I
going
don't
through.
care. I would never say what he just said.
Sometimes he also takes decisions from her, thinking that he knows better.
Damn you, Gale. It's not funny.
What are you gonna do with the 100-pound deer, Catnip?
Although a love triangle between the main characters is quite a common and worn-out theme in young adult stories, Suzanne Collins has shaped some things differently here as well. Even though it is often said that Katniss stalls both Peter and Gale, I find her behavior quite understandable. She puts her family and friends always first.
Where's Bryn? I thought she went to find you.
Moreover, she is not capable of having a love relationship alongside the mental stresses of war. In my opinion, this is very realistic.
What do you say now?
Do you love me?
Kaylee, you know how I feel about you. But I can't think about anyone that way right now. The only thing that I can think about every day, every waking moment, since the reaping is how afraid I am.
I'm glad she chooses Peter in the end.
Hey.
I like that the camaraderie between the two and the things they've been through together are at the forefront, and that there's little romanticization of the relationship on the whole.
You love me. Real or not real?
Real.
I'll skillfully ignore the last scene of the last film here. So, all in all, from a gender equality perspective, the characters and the storylines in the Hunger Games are very well done, and it's all well thought out. The system. The totalitarian system of Panem is clearly a patriarchy, which doesn't mean that the whole Panem world is dominated by men. You can see a clear difference between the organization of the opposing forces, the capital and the rebels. All important positions in the capital are held by men. There's the male president Coriolanus Snow.
Of the Hunger Games.
There are the male game makers Seneca Crane and Plutarch Heavensbee. There is the male moderator Caesar Flickerman. There is the male expert and announcer Claudius Templesmith. And when you have a look at the podium of the jury during the evaluation process of the tributes in the first movie, you see that there are mostly white old men. On the rebel side, there are quite a few important political and military positions that are held by women. Of course, there is Katniss as the Mockingjay and as the symbol of the rebellion.
And if we burn, you burn with us.
Then there is President Alma Coin, who is the leader of District 13. And there are some other women who specifically become important in the Mockingjay book and movies, thus in the final revolution. First, there is Commander Paler in District 8, who also becomes president after the rebellion when Snow and Coin are dead. Then there's Lieutenant Jackson, who is the co-leader of the Squad 451. And last but not least, there's Cressida, a director from the capital who defected to the rebels and shoots the propose of Katniss as a Mockingjay.
Just let them see your face.
Overall, I think that Suzanne Collins was perfectly aware of gender roles and their significance in a system. The patriarchy is the enemy, that's also the case in the Hunger Games.
Remember who the real enemy is.
As Katniss names President Snow as the enemy, you could say that Snow is the personification of patriarchy.
We all have one enemy, and that's Snow.
Suzanne Collins actively chose to contrast Snow in the capital and the female leaders of the rebels. The Bechdel-Wallace test. In the 1980s, the cartoonist Alison Bechdel and her friend Liz Wallace came up with the idea of a test which should unmask the gender inequality and the overrepresentation of men in the Hollywood film industry. To pass the Bechdel-Wallace test, a movie simply has to have these elements in it. First, it has to have at least 2 named women in it. Second, who talk to each other. And third, about something other than a man. So now's the question whether the Hunger Games movies contain at least one scene in which these criteria are met. Well, the short answer is yes. In the first movie, There are several scenes with Rue and Katniss in the arena.
I'm not gonna hurt you.
They become allies. They talk about strategies.
Light this one last, and I'll meet you back over there.
Right.
And they develop a deep friendship. In addition, Katniss talks to Prim about several things in all 3 movies. They often comfort each other.
It was me.
And they share a deep sisterly love.
You'd have to agree to it.
I should wake you up more often, little duck.
In the Mockingjay movies, and even more in the Mockingjay book, Katniss and Joanna talk much about the arena and the Capitol.
Now you're talking.
Their relationship could be described as a love-hate relationship.
I mean, it's everybody's job to keep you alive.
Is that why you hate me?
Thank you so much for watching. If you've liked this video, please like and feel free to leave a comment below. I'd like to hear your opinions on the characters and the story in general. If you have ideas or requests for another dystopia you'd like me to discuss in one of the next videos, please post it below in the comment section as well. I'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next video of this series. See you then!
Come into the tree where dead man called out for his love to flee. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.